4 years ago, Apple went on stage and announced the move over to Apple Silicon, and ever since then, things have been fantastic, including chips getting more powerful, battery life being better, and overall the design of these MacBooks being fantastic. Now, how does the M1 MacBook Pro hold up in 2024? Let's find out. Number one, the design. The design of this thing is so timeless. The M1 MacBook Pro holds up so well. This design got announced in 2017 and still holds up all the way now into 2024. I love the look of this laptop and think it's honestly one of the best designs Apple has ever made. Now, I know a lot of people don't agree with me and they prefer the new style that's a bit thicker with more ports. But I just think, aside from all the ports, I think this laptop looks fantastic. Number two, that swiftly moves me on to the port selection. Now, this thing only came with 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack. Now, yes, that is not a lot, especially for someone that uses, a lot of monitors. You will be plugging a lot of external SSDs. Yeah, not fantastic. But if you're using this thing just for internet browsing, occasionally plugging in some external storage, 2 USB-C ports is enough. Now, yes, it sucks that we originally had 4 with the Intel MacBooks. Oh, this was Apple's first chip. It's going to have some caveats that, other laptops before it didn't have. So I think that 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack wasn't too bad for Apple's first run. I just think it can sometimes get a bit annoying when I have to charge my laptop, I have to plug in external storage, and I need to plug in other USB-C accessories. It's just not ideal. Number 3, the touch bar. The touch bar for me was fantastic. I absolutely loved this thing. Now, yes, could it have been executed better at the beginning when it first came out? Absolutely. This thing was prone to crashing, had the escape key in it, which was a terrible move on Apple's part, and I think put a lot of people off. But when they redid the touch bar in 2019 and they got rid of the butterfly keyboard and they brought in the new touch bar, they made a lot of great changes. The escape key is now separate from the touch bar, and I just love being able to have shortcuts that I want in the touch bar and not just a dedicated function row that Apple have decided what shortcuts are best for me. Now, yes, I do think that there should still be a function row, but I think there should be a touch bar on the top. I think there's enough room for it on the new MacBooks. Maybe add it to only the 16-inch, but I still think that a touch bar would be a nice touch just for these new MacBook Pros that are out. Mainly because the touch bar can be useful. I use it all the time in Final Cut Pro. I use it when I'm editing, in Photoshop. I use it for scrubbing through video. It's fantastic. Number 4, that brings me on to the keyboard. Now, the keyboard on the M1 MacBook Pro did adopt the older keyboard from the 2019 MacBooks, which is fantastic because the butterfly keyboard was a terrible idea, Apple. What were you thinking? Yes, slick design, looks fantastic. But if the keys are breaking, that's not very useful to a lot of people. You need a keyboard that actually works, not one that just decides to break if you click it to a button the wrong way. Now, this keyboard's fantastic. I've used countless hours typing on this thing, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, I think these things can have a bit more of a key travel so that it's not so hard on your fingers all the time, but the sound is satisfying, the way they click is nice, and I just think that having the keys as a short key press can also be useful, because it just means that you can get to the keys quicker. It just can be uncomfortable sometimes. Number 5, the trackpad. Now, the trackpad on MacBooks is notorious for being amazing. This thing, ever since the new trackpad got announced all the way back in the Retina MacBook Pro days, it's been fantastic. The glass trackpad is just something that you cannot compete with. The size of the trackpad, the way the gestures work with the trackpad. I go to Windows laptops and I try and use them, and I just think that they're terrible. They're tiny, they don't feel as nice, and the haptics just are nowhere near as good. Because yeah, Windows laptops do sometimes have haptic feedback, but it's just not as satisfying as Apple's. You click and you feel like you're actually clicking on a real mouse button. Like, the fact that this thing has no travel whatsoever is really impressive, because half the time you would not even be able to tell you're not clicking on a trackpad. The only time when you notice that it's not a real trackpad is when the MacBook is dead and there's no battery in it, because as soon as you click the trackpad, the MacBook turns on and it activates. Overall, I think this trackpad is fantastic, and I think that it's a really, really good thing that this is on the M1 MacBook Pro, because it just makes that experience better. Because for me, this was my first MacBook. It was, as soon as they move over to Apple Silicon, I thought that's perfect. It's in a good price range, got good power, and the trackpad is amazing, especially when you come from a Windows laptop and you go to a MacBook. It's noticeable by far. Number 6, the storage. Now, I opted for 256 gigabytes of storage. So it did mean that, storage can be a little bit of a squeeze sometimes. I have to use an external hard drive, which means that the speeds aren't really that fast, but it does mean that I can have an infinite amount of storage. Now, yes, do I wish that I spec my MacBook with at least a 512 gig of storage? Yes. But at the time, I wanted a MacBook Pro. My parents said they'd buy it for me. And it worked out perfectly because it put me my foot in the door into getting a MacBook Pro. And it just means that now I have that experience with Apple laptops and I don't ever think I could go back. Now yes, storage aside, do I think it's absolutely abysmal that Apple's baseline storage on these was 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage? In 2020 and 2021 at the time when this thing was announced and released, it was terrible. And in 2024, it's even worse now, considering most laptops will start with 16GB of RAM and at least 512GB of storage, especially at this price. It's abysmal, you know, like the fact that you can pay at the time £1,200 and get a machine that had 256GB of storage. Come on, Apple, step it up. Now, obviously now, in 2024, when the second-hand market's going crazy, you can pick up some amazing deals on the 512GB of storage or 1TB of storage. It's fine now. You can pay £600-700 to get the same as what would have been a £1,600-1,700 option in the past. For the people that bought the M1 MacBook Pro at the time and were just wanting to get an Apple laptop, yeah, Apple, you really did us over there. Number 7, the speakers. Now, the speakers are fantastic on this laptop and amazing. They are honestly the best speakers on a laptop that I've ever heard. Now, yes, obviously the newer MacBook Pros and the newer MacBooks are fantastic. But when I first heard these going from my Windows laptop all the way to this MacBook, there's no comparison. Even the expensive Windows laptops just do not sound as good as these speakers. Take a listen to these speakers now. They're fantastic, they sound amazing, they have good bass, they have good vocals, and the mids aren't too insane, the lows are really good, and the highs all just sound so nice. There's no level where these speakers don't sound amazing, and I think on really high volume, it can really fill a room, and it's honestly fantastic. Along with the speakers is the microphones that are built into these things. Apple bragged a lot about the microphones on these laptops, because they are fantastic. It just sucks that the webcam of the laptop really lets down the speakers and the microphone. Because the speakers are fantastic, the microphone sounds like I'm using a dedicated microphone, but the webcam lets it down. You know, when you're on a video call, or you're trying to FaceTime people, it just makes you look like a potato. And that's a shame when you have a studio quality mic and you have a studio quality speakers. I just don't think that's fantastic. You have a 720p webcam in there, Apple. Come on. In 2024, it looks terrible. The M1 chip. This came with an 8-core CPU and 8-core GPU, and it is fantastic for me. Now, yes, I do appreciate that the M1 chip is really now starting to show its time, especially in Final Cut and Photoshop. Don't be wrong, it's not holding up as bad as the old Intel MacBooks, but yeah, it's slowed down. It's not as fantastic as it once was, and I can appreciate that. You know, I notice it when I'm going through Final Cut, editing videos at 4K at 60, and also using Photoshop, it can sometimes have little lag spurts, but considering the fan is barely, you know, ramping up, it is really impressive that they're getting this much performance out of a 4-year-old chip now. I did run a Cinebench score on this laptop, and it took overall for the single core, it took 8 minutes 50 seconds to render everything, which isn't terrible. I definitely know that there is, you know, laptops out there that would be worse. Considering when I was doing this, I kept the camera on the whole time, and you can hear no fan noise. Like, the fan was not even noticeable one bit. Now, don't be wrong, I reckon it was probably spinning, but nowhere to the point where you can hear it, you know, when you're just in a silent room. I had nothing else playing, just watching the MacBook, and you could not hear a sound. Now on the multi-core, it took 5 minutes 22 seconds, and again, after doing a consecutive run, 5 minutes and 22 seconds. That is really, really good, with no fan noise, the battery going down by 4%. 4%, that is insane. After doing that much of a load, really, really impressive battery life, and I honestly couldn't recommend it more. The software, oh my goodness, going from Windows to macOS was a complete change. And yes, there's aspects of Windows I just miss. Being able to easily right click on stuff, easily being able to make new virtual machines, easily being able to run any other software you want, being able to have everything compatible with x86, fantastic. But macOS has so many amazing features that integrate so nicely with my iPhone that you just feel like these devices merge into one. I mean, the MacBook and the iPhone talk incredibly well. My Apple Watch can unlock stuff for me on my MacBook. Instead of being able to use my fingerprint, I just use my watch. I'm into my MacBook. I'm, approving passwords. And it's honestly a really, really good feature that I wish Windows could adopt with, Samsung phones. Come on. Samsung partnered with Microsoft. I'm sure they could do something like this to make their ecosystem just even better. But Apple's ecosystem is just unmatched when it comes to these laptops, regardless of what processor you've got. Now, if you do have an Apple Silicon chip, you get more features. You'll get the screencasting from your phone to your MacBook, and you'll get the messages sync across. You'll get FaceTime sync across. Now, obviously, not all these features are limited to M1 MacBooks and above, but it's just how quick it works. And you know that everything's secure. When it's Apple-built hardware, Apple-built software, you feel like everything just is done for you, and I like that. I like not having to worry about pairing my phone to my laptop. It's done it by itself. I like that having to pair my watch to my laptop. I like everything just syncing together. My Apple Wallet is synced, my photos are synced, my messages are synced, my FaceTime synced. Everything just syncs so nicely that it just makes Windows laptops look bad how well these laptops can do it. Integration, now obviously I mentioned that in the software part, the integration with the phones, with the watch, with anything Apple is fantastic. Using Apple software works a charm. If I open something on my iPhone, it pops up on my dock. It's fantastic, and I can merge my devices together. If I had an iPad, I can make it into a second display. I could also have another MacBook that can control my MacBook. And it's just features like that which just make you think, yeah, Apple have got everything that they need, and they make you feel safe. That's why they put you in the walled garden, so you could not leave. Because I've done it where I switched to Android phones from my iPhone, and just the integration just is nowhere near as good. The integration with the phone with the MacBook is incredible. And then you've got the integration with AirPods that just seamlessly switch between the iPhone and the MacBook. There's nothing like it. How is my M1 MacBook Pro holding up? Yeah, things are starting to slow down. Like in this video you can see here, the Photoshop does take a sweet amount of time to open, but when you're opening Chrome, Photos, Calendar, FaceTime, Messages, it's still snappy. It's just some of the bigger apps do take a bit longer to open, whereas when I first got the laptop, it opened a lot quicker. But I just think, that's software updates. That's just the chip getting older. That's probably dust being in the fan, so it can't, it can't get as much air intake. And I think this chip, considering it's 4 years old, my old Intel Core i3 after 4 years was dying. It literally wanted to burn itself alive, and I don't blame it. That chip had so much it was having to run because Windows adds so much bloatware, and after all the dust I probably got in those fans, that chip couldn't hold up. Whereas with my M1 MacBook Pro, this thing is just fantastic. I have no issues with it. The battery life holds up well, and considering this chip is 4 years old and was Apple's first go at Apple Silicon in a MacBook, they did fantastically. And I think that I was worried about getting this laptop when I first got it because I thought, this is Apple's first go at Apple Silicon. It's not going to be fantastic. There's going to be things that aren't going to hold up in the next couple of years. And I was wrong. Apple, you did a fantastic job with making sure that this chip held up the test of time, and it has. And I'd highly recommend it for people if you're getting a second-hand laptop. The M1 MacBook Pro still does really well. Should you buy it in 2024? Should you go and spend your money on an M1 MacBook Pro instead of an M1 MacBook Air or instead of an M2 MacBook Pro? Now, I think for the extra price, the M2 really doesn't give you much more. The speeds aren't really that noticeable, and you're just paying for more just for a slightly better chip. Whereas you could pay for an M1 MacBook Pro that's got a fan, that's got the better processor, whereas with the M1 MacBook Air, you don't have a fan, it's got a bin processor, whereas this one is fantastic. It still holds up well. You're getting it for a relatively good price for the same spec I've got. If you want to get bigger storage, yes, you're going to pay more, but I think that it's still a really good deal. You can find some amazing deals on eBay, amazing deals on the marketplace. As long as you're careful and you're savvy with what you're looking for, these laptops are going to be fantastic deals, especially in another 2-3 years time when these laptops are still going and still realistically holding up really well. It's going to be amazing because you're going to be able to get an Apple Silicon laptop for around £300-400, and that's the future I look forward to. It's not when we're in that £600 to £700 ratio, but when we're in that £300 to £400 area, that's when these laptops are going to be really appealing. Now, if you're on an Intel MacBook and you've got the base i3, I definitely say M1 MacBook Pro all day, every day. But if you have the 16-inch i9 processor, yeah, this laptop isn't going to do it for you because you're getting the same performance, which is insane, but yeah, you're getting the same performance. For you, you're going to want to either step up to an M2 Pro and an M2 Max, or even the M1 Max and M1 Pro are still going to hold up really well. I just think if you want that, safety net, the M2 is probably going to be the better way to go. But yeah, for people that just do, Chromebook type stuff, going on the internet, using Word, not using this laptop heavily, this laptop's going to be way better for you. And I still think the M1 MacBook Air could still be a good option. I just think this one's going to, make sure you have that safety net of, if in the future these chips get a bit hotter, you've got that fan to cool it down. Whereas with the M1 MacBook Air, it's not going to get any cooling other than, the heat is dispersing through the case. So that is just something to take into consideration. If you have an M1 MacBook Pro and you're noticing that it's starting to slow down and you're starting to want to get an upgrade, should you upgrade? If you have this thing, should you actually upgrade from it? Now, I'm in the same boat. I use this thing for, light work most of the time, editing sometimes, and using Photoshop. And I think, yes, sometimes I really wish I could have an upgrade, but other times I just think this chip holds up so well, and it'd be such a shame for me to upgrade my laptop when this thing's still got so much more performance left in it. Now, don't be wrong, if you're searching for something that's got loads of power, without a doubt, upgrade to the newest silicon. But if you're still struggling to max this thing out and make your laptop lag a lot, honestly, stick with it. Go through the bumps of this processor, because I still think this processor's got another 3-4 years in it to still be an amazing chip. And I think it'd be a real shame if you're just upgrading for the sake of it. Now, yeah, you do get a lot of amazing things with the new MacBook Pros. You get HDMI, you get an SD card slot, you get extra USB-C ports. But take into consideration that if you throw these things away or you're selling them, you are wasting your money if you do not need it. And honestly, I think for a lot of people that have got this laptop, you don't need it. Yeah, the new design looks great, but this one's still got something special. It's still got the touch bar. It's still got that older design that Johnny Ive created. And it's still got that nice touch of modernness. It's got the Apple Silicon chip. It's got that timeless design. And I think you should stick with it if you're not using it to its full potential. So that brings me on to number 14, the battery life. How has it held up? With 188 cycles, it's on a 94% battery health. And honestly, I think that is absolutely incredible. I've used this thing for 3 years straight with not really being careful with my battery life. I think that deserves some credit, Apple. That brings me on to what I conclude from this whole thing. Do I think that this laptop is a fantastic option for people? Now, if you're just starting college, or you're going into, uni, or you're starting school, this laptop's going to be great. Unless you're doing a course that requires you to have a really powerful laptop, this laptop's going to be great for Word. It's going to be great for using it on the day-to-day. It's going to be great for, making sure that you've got a laptop that gets you through the day, that isn't old, but isn't, insanely new and isn't insanely expensive. My laptop still holds up fantastically, and the battery life has been fantastic, and it's held up so well. Honestly, if you want to get a laptop that's powerful, that's relatively cheap, and that runs Apple Silicon, the M1 MacBook Pro is going to be perfect for you, and I couldn't recommend this laptop more. But if you did enjoy this video, please do make sure to like and subscribe. It's been Harry. I'm out. Peace.